What the Falcons do, rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, lifelong sports fan. So, today I just wanted to kind of finish up my conversation about the running backs for fantasy. I've already gone through kind of my top 32, top 5 tiers, and this is going to be a little contradictory. I do have a couple of guys on my avoid list down here that I personally am not going to draft. They have some upside that I've already talked about, but I don't like them, and I'm going to avoid them personally. And I've got about 13 guys, actually, sorry, 12 guys on here that I am going to talk about a little bit in terms of who I think are guys that you should be targeting, particularly in the later rounds. So without any ado, here we go. Right out of the gate, Devin Singletary and James Cook, number one on this list overall. They have the highest ceiling potential between the two of them in terms of offensive production. Buffalo has been looking for someone to offload pressure for the running game from Josh Allen for years now. Singletary kind of came alive at the end of last year, so if he can continue that on, there's no reason to think he wouldn't be a valuable starter. He won people leagues at the end of last season, but, again, I don't know that he's done enough to prove that he's the guy there, which is why in the second round they went with the running back phenom from Georgia, James Cook. Now, a lot of people in the fantasy industry seem to think that he is just a pass-catching back. Having watched every single game, every down of Georgia football over the last 4 years, really not even that, he's only been there for 3, but over the last few years, he's a beast. There's no other way to put it for him. He's an absolute monster on the ground. Whenever he was in, I knew that we were going to be good. You could count on him in the passing game. You could count on him in the run game. Just literally, he is Dalvin Cook's little brother, and he looks every bit the part. He's a guy that I love overall, but I think they do have the established Devin Singletary who he's going to have to supplant, and I'm not sure he does that early in the year. Now, you're going to want one of these guys. They're definitely guys you should take in the mid-late rounds, and that's about where they're going in drafts right now. So those are guys I definitely think you're looking for. Now, next guy. I know I'm very high on Damien Harris, but everybody in the fantasy industry and the New England Patriots seems to love Ramondre Stevenson. If he becomes this year's Damien Harris, and Damien Harris gets traded, which is what it may end up coming to, then he definitely has a lot of fantasy value. Last year, Damien Harris had more than 12 touchdowns. Very touchdown dependent on his workload, and there's no reason to think Ramondre couldn't do the same thing as a younger back. I do give the edge to Harris, but Ramondre is a decent guy to keep on your radar. Again, kind of those middle end to late rounds there. Number 3, Melvin Gordon. He is in a 60-40 split with Javonte Williams over in Denver. Now, he was the lead back for a couple of years. He's getting a little bit of wear and tear on him. Not a guy I think is going to supplant Williams unless there's an injury, but he is still a beast on the goal line. He's going to get you some touchdowns. Probably not a guy that's going to be anchoring you from week to week, but definitely a plug-and-play starter and somebody that should be rostered in every single league. Number 4, James Robinson went down last year late with an injury to his knee. I look for him when he comes back, which he is working and doing agility training at this point. When he comes back, he's going to give Travis Etienne a run for his money. He's been a top 20 running back when he's been on the field as an undrafted free agent. He has proven that he is a commodity worth having in Jacksonville, and he's going to give Travis Etienne a run for his money as that lead back when he does officially come back. We'll see if he gets any preseason work, and we'll see if he's out at all in the first part of the year. He's a guy that you may want to take a flyer on round 11 or 12 just to have on the bench and say, hey, this is going to be a guy that I think will be good in 3 or 4 weeks into the season. Next guy, Marlon Mack, former really good player for Indianapolis Colts. I feel like he was never given a fair shot with the Colts. They never had a great quarterback while he was there. Their offensive line was rebuilding for the most part throughout the duration of his time there, and they just never really trusted him with the ball in spite of him having a phenomenal rookie year. So he ended up going to the Houston Texans. He is the very clear running back 1 there. Now, I don't know that running back 1 has a lot of value from a fantasy standpoint. There are definitely some RB2s like A.J. Dillon and Tony Pollard that I would take above him or above that position. But still, it's an RB1. It is a starting running back. He's going to get, as long as he's healthy and as long as he's productive, he's going to get 12 to 16 carries a week. And those are yards and points that you just can't pass up on. He can be utilized in the passing game. So definitely a guy that I'd keep an eye on. They're not really that enamored with Dameon Pierce at this point. We'll see. He may end up with the job down the stretch, but they're definitely rolling out Marlon Mack to start with. Number 6, Raheem Mostert. Now, Raheem Mostert, great for San Francisco. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. I think he's going to be fine in Miami. He probably is the best running back they actually have on the roster right now. He should be the season starter, though Chase Edmonds has probably the most upside there. But if he does supplant Edmonds, he will be a running back 2, running back 3 guy. So definitely a guy that should be on your team. Number 7, Isaiah Spiller, the 4th-round rookie from Texas A&M, drafted to the Chargers. Great offense there. He is the clear number 2 guy in the offense at running back. If Eckler goes down with any injury, which he has done before, Spiller becomes an immediate RB1 in every single league. So a guy I don't think you can avoid in terms of just not drafting at all. He will be on everybody's team at the end of drafts. Number 8, Tyler Algier. Now, Atlanta, we're going to struggle this year, and I've been talking about that a lot. We're still going to run the ball, though. Somebody's got to carry the rock, and Cordarrelle Patterson is old. I think Tyler Algier has the clearest route to being our running back 1. I think he ends up being the leader by the end of the season. Not a guy you're going to be counting on early in the year. I don't think our offensive line is good enough to really have that phenomenal running back talent. But again, a guy that you can't pass up on in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, or even earlier. Number 9, Brian Robinson, the Alabama running back taken to Washington this year as a rookie. He's an Alabama running back. Alabama running backs do phenomenal in the NFL. And at a collegiate level, he did nothing but run well in a Nick Saban offense. We know what that leads to in the NFL. Antonio Gibson does not seem to command the same respect that he did last year from that offense. He fumbled in his first preseason game in limited action. Brian Robinson, I think, will end up being the clear number 2 and could end up being their guy. If they decide they're not going to be extending Antonio Gibson, they definitely are going to give somebody else a shot to be their lead back, especially in a year where they're probably rebuilding and trying to see what they have for the future. So a guy that I think has clear top 30, maybe even top 20 potential if he gets the rock. So I like Brian Robinson a lot. So just continuing on rookies, Zamir White, Las Vegas. I cannot speak highly enough about Zamir White. Again, another Georgia guy. I've watched every single game this guy has played. He does nothing but beat the ever-living shit out of defensive lines. He is a phenomenal player. He is going to probably replace Josh Jacobs as the running back in Las Vegas. If not this year, then next year. He's a guy for sure in Dynasty you want a piece of. A guy this year that could be very productive after about the first few weeks of the year if they're looking to see what they've got. So definitely a guy I'm high on there. Number 11, 12, these are the kind of guys that are on the fringe for me. Chris Evans out of Cincinnati. Now, he's not a rookie anymore. He's been in the league a couple of years now. He has been tearing it up in the Cincinnati training camp. And he's a guy that I think they definitely would like to see more of on the field. He'll get some looks probably at the goal line. He's been acting as a 3-down back for them in practice. So a guy that will probably get some goal line work. Now, a lot of people think Samaje Perine is the clear number 2 in Cincinnati. Anybody who has actually watched their practice, though, and reported on it has said that he doesn't even hold a candle to Chris Evans. Chris Evans is a guy you will probably find on your waiver wire early in the year. Not a guy that you necessarily have to draft, but he's a guy that you should definitely keep an eye on, especially given that Joe Mixon has not historically been the healthiest back. Last year, he played basically a full year. I don't recall a year prior to that where he had actually played a full season. So you're going to want the backup in a high-powered offense like Cincinnati. And then 12, Trey Sermon. Now, Trey Sermon came in as a rookie last year. I think a lot of people had a lot of high expectations because of the Kyle Shanahan offense and utilizing a ton of running backs there. And it ended up not being him. It ended up being undrafted free agent, or undrafted rookie, rather, Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell, if he's the guy, is perfectly fine. San Francisco has not used a consistent lead back in the last 5 years. Every single year since 2017, a different running back has been their leader at the end of the season. So that does not inspire confidence for Mitchell, but it does inspire confidence in the fact that very rarely is a rookie their guy, but usually it's a guy that's been on the roster and maybe kind of hidden in the depth chart for a few years. That's going to be Trey Sermon this year. He still has a lot of gas in the tank. He's young. I think he's got a lot of potential there. The same potential you gave him last year. Consider this a redo of his potential rookie year. And definitely a guy that could be, the running back 1 if something happens to Mitchell, or if he just doesn't play well. So somebody that I'm really high on there. Now, I do have 5 guys that I want to avoid right here. Number one for me, Kareem Hunt. I think his time is done. I don't like him at all in Cleveland at this point. He wants out of Cleveland. He's not happy there. Last year was a major down year. I think Nick Chubb is going to be getting the absolute bulk of the workload at this point. I don't like him at all in Cleveland. I am completely avoiding him, even though he's being drafted around that 30 to 35 mark for running backs, maybe even a little sooner. There's plenty of other guys that I would take ahead of him. Any starting running back should go before Kareem Hunt. Miles Sanders is a guy that I did put in my tier 5 on my last running back video. For the same reason that I talked about there of him being tier 5, is the same reason I don't know that I love him. He really hasn't gotten more than like 150 fantasy points any year, and it's now like year 4 for him. I just don't think his upside is huge, and he's a guy that if you're trying to swing for the fences in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, he ain't it. He hasn't shown that he has that ability. Jalen Hurts is going to be running the ball a ton. He basically is their lead back on the team, and he's their quarterback. So I just don't like him there, even though he is in a high rushing offense overall. Number 3, Ken Walker. I absolutely freaking hate that Ken Walker went to Seattle. I love Rashad Penny this year. I absolutely hate Ken Walker this year. And not because Ken Walker is a bad running back. When I was watching these guys in college, him and Breece Hall, I thought Ken Walker was the best running back last year in college football. I thought he would be the first taken off the board. If he goes to Buffalo, I love him. I love him more than James Cook in Buffalo. If he goes to the Jets, I like him there. I like him fine on the Jets. If he goes to any running back needy team with a semi-decent offensive line, I love it. He goes to Seattle, ranked 31 or 32 out of 32 teams on offensive line. I hate his... I just really hate him. I can't speak to his talent enough. In a dynasty, you absolutely should take him and put him on your bench for the year. He'll be good in the future. I don't look for it to be this year. I hope I'm wrong because I think he's a phenomenal talent, but I don't think he's going to be good this year. My last 2 guys here, Michael Carter out of the New Jersey Jets. He had an okay rookie year, nothing special, but Breece Hall's there now, man. Breece Hall was, the number 1 running back out of college, first running back off the board in the draft this year. I'm sorry, Michael, but it's over for you. Your fantasy value was very short-lived. Now, the Jets are not going to be as good as I thought they were going to be, so they all get a little bit of a downgrade. Zach Wilson hurt his knee in the preseason, probably not going to be playing for the first couple of weeks of the season. It's going to be a Joe Flacco-led team for a while, so maybe they do lean heavily on the running backs. Carter definitely has some value. I just don't think it's high. He should be the 5th or 6th running back on your roster if you're taking guys. If you find him as the 3rd or 4th on your roster, you did something incredibly wrong during the draft. And the last guy that I just don't really care for here, it's going to be a little bit of a shocker just because of the offense that he's in, Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones couldn't make it work in Tampa Bay with the GOAT. Couldn't do it. He was very clearly their guy ahead of Leonard Fournette for the first part of Leonard Fournette's tenure there. Couldn't outshine him. So Ronald Jones is apparently not doing great in camp with Kansas City. He's having trouble picking up the offense. He is allowing sacks in practice. So he's brought in to potentially be a really good blocking back, and he's not doing it. So I don't like him at all. There are other hidden gems on that roster that I do like that I really don't want to talk about because I know some of my friends watch these videos and I don't want them to snipe them from me in drafts coming up. But yeah, I just don't like him there at all. Clyde Edwards-Helaire I like a hell of a lot better than I like Jones. And again, Edwards-Helaire is in my tier 5 guys from the last video. Definitely a starter there and a guy who doesn't have much competition. So I would stay away from Ronald Jones, but that's just me. So are there any guys that I missed here? Is there anybody that you think should be on this board? I will go ahead and tell you there's at least 2 or 3 that I didn't include specifically for my own leagues that I have coming up. But, is there anybody that should be on this list that's not? Please make your case down below. Would love to hear about it in the comments. Would love to engage with you guys. If you like the video, hit the like button. Consider subscribing. It'll really help the channel out. And until next time, rise up.